I would say that. Look at those nice teeth. I would say that there has been very giant focal points in my life that have changed me significantly and have turned me to who I am today. Um, as I'm very cynical about people who want to change the world, I'm very. And by cynical, I mean I just don't believe in them. And I don't think that they know exactly what the fuck they're talking about. I would also say that I just don't have the greatest positive, most great view of people who say that they're nice or say that they are decent people because, in my experience, they have not been and probably never will be. Uh, and I think I've experienced all of these sorts of things in a setting called school. Now, in the setting called school, school has been a part. School is a part of pretty much everyone's life, assuming that you, I don't know, had a family that cared about you, or just lived in a society that gave a fuck, or I don't know. Because obviously you can live in Oklahoma and not go to school at all since the time you were born, because no one's gonna force you, no one's gonna find you. Um, but if you live in a big ass metropolitan area and somebody knows you're born, then yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, cool, you go to school? I don't know if that made any sense. However, my point is, I think that school has been an instrumental force that, in some ways, not necessarily keeps me out, but I think most people would have killed themselves or quit school if they were me and have experienced the things that I've experienced in school. Now, I will admit to some things that I've done which that have made school and for me hard, have made school for me very difficult. That would be my relationships with other students, whether it be stealing their things or arguing with them, and then actually I think that's pretty much it. I think that's really the only biggest thing that's really made my time at school very difficult. Other than that, though, I can think of times such as when I first my first school in Wisconsin. It was I was new to the class. I think it was either my first day or the first week, and we all had to sit down and crisscross applesauce on the fucking floor. And essentially, I was sitting in the back next to the wall because I think that's the spot I chose. And on the spot next to the wall, there was a sticker on the wall in which I did not touch at all because I don't need to touch it and I'm not retarded. And it fell off. And the teacher was like, Spencer, pick that up and don't touch it again. I was like, okay. So I put it up back on the wall and I don't touch it because I didn't touch it the first fucking time. And the bitch falls back again. She falls down again. She's like, don't do that again. And then I got, from what I can remember, I know I got in-school recess suspension. So essentially I missed my recess. And I was pissed because I was like, what the fuck? I didn't touch this fucking shit, you retarded bitch. But ultimately, it fell on deaf ears because no one's going to listen to a child at all and what they have to say, ever. Now, I don't know if this is relevant, but I'm going to make it relevant because it's the middle of fucking nowhere in a flyover state, and I was brand new. So I was the only black child in that classroom. Now, I don't know if I was the only black child in that school. However, given the racial demographic of that area, I would assume I probably was. Because even when I rode the bus, I don't think I saw a single Negro child on that bus. And that bus had a bunch of kids on it, from my grade to, I think, high school, or middle school at least. I remember seeing a kid who had a fuck ton of pimples. It was wild. Anywho, that was wild to me and upsetting, and it was just like, this sucks, and fuck you, bitch. But ultimately, the time passed. I don't remember anything else from that school. That's the biggest thing I remember. And then I moved down south back down south to another school, in which, God, let's see. Anything ever happened at that school? I don't think anything ever significantly happened at that school. I remember one thing. This isn't a bad thing. I think this is kind of funny. We were doing a spelling test in which the teacher would read out words and you'd have to spell them, as a spelling test usually works in grade school. And I tried to cheat by sitting up by the teacher and reading the words through the paper that she had. And so I would try to write the words before she even said them. And she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, and I told her, and she was like, "Those aren't even the words I'm trying to write." It's like, oh, damn. And then she started putting paper underneath that paper, and so, I don't know if I passed that test. I don't think I did. I think I got like one of them right. I think that was the one that she actually said out loud. Anywho, and I remember also annoying that teacher with one certain question because it was in the state of Florida, and I was like, and in my head I thought teachers knew everything, because why the fuck else wouldn't you be a teacher if you didn't know anything? And I was like, why is Florida shaped like a gun? And I remember kept asking her. She's like, I don't know. I was like, why don't you fucking know? What the fuck? How the fuck do you be a teacher? You don't even know this fucking shit. Yeah, and I also didn't eat my lunch ever at that school, and that was also when I got my GI tube finally closed and taken out, which was beautiful. However, it took a while for them to actually schedule the appointment to get it glued, so everything I drank would actually leak out of my stomach, which was actually it's kind of cool, kind of retro now thinking about it, like having a hole in your stomach and everything you drink just gets your shirt soakingly wet. God, what else? And then, oh God, what grade was I in now? Then I moved out west. Oh God, what happened out west? A bunch of shit happened out west. Nothing happened at the first school, but at the second school there was an issue. Oh man. So I didn't get along with these two girls named Brittany and Heidi. I can't remember why I didn't get along with them. I remember arguing with Heidi one time about a ride at Knott's Berry Farm, in which she said she rode the ride, and I was like, you couldn't have ridden the ride, you're too fucking short. And she was like, I rode the ride. Like, no, you didn't. Again, I don't know why I even got into that argument. I don't know. It just happened. And then there was Brittany, who was a cousin to Jake and Jake's younger brother Spencer, and he had an older brother who was in middle school who played football, but I don't know his name. So, anywho, I didn't like either of them. They didn't like me. I really don't know. I don't know. There was one day in the playground in which I had come back from the handball court, and I was on the jungle gym, and I saw them playing with ponies or something, and I imagine words were said. I don't know what words would have been said, but eventually I go down the slide, and I leave them alone, and then I'm called back like 5 or 10 minutes later, and I'm in the nurse's / principal's office, because they're in the nurse's office, and I'm in the principal's office, and they're like, why does Heidi, or is it Brittany? I think it was, why does it Brittany have a red marker? It was Brittany. Why does Brittany have a red marker on her neck? And I was like, wait, what the fuck? I don't fucking know. Why does she have a red marker on her neck? And I was like, oh, well, that's because they said you slapped her. It's like, wait, what the shit? And it was Brittany and Heidi both co-conspirating against me for some unknown reason, in which they said that I slapped them, and at this point I'm bawling my eyes. I was saying, I didn't slap her, I didn't do any of that shit. The best I would do at that school was steal people's shit. I would never slap somebody. I should have stolen their shit after that. I should have stolen it all and sold it for absolutely nothing, because fuck them. Anywho, I get in trouble for that, and school suspension, and for which I think was like a week or something, I don't know. They ended up calling her dad, because I'm like, well, maybe she had the mark when she left school or something, and her dad's like, no, that didn't happen. I was like, wait, what the fuck? Then I know, for me, I did not slap either of those two people. We probably talked a lot of shit to each other when we crossed paths, but there was no sort of slapping involved or hitting each other. We never, Heidi and I even had, what was it, after school program together, in which we would like kind of argue, but we wouldn't slap each other. So I don't know where the fuck that shit came from. I don't know how the fuck, that was an upsetting time. God, what else? Shit. So we're in fourth grade. No, we're in third grade then? Second grade? I don't fucking know. Um, no shit. Middle school's after that, huh? Wow. Okay, so we go to middle school. Middle school was the time. People hate middle school. I'm not entirely sure why. Actually, I can understand why. But I was granted privilege through middle school. Oh, no, we need to go to fifth grade first. Fifth grade, I'd moved again. This time towards the Inland Empire, in which I lived in the desert. God. Full disclosure, I think I hated both my teacher and I know I definitely 110% hated a teacher who wasn't even my teacher, whose name was Mr. Simon, in which, to me, I thought he was a scary individual. I will say that if any child thinks you as a teacher is a scary individual, you're probably a bad teacher. Um, now. I only would have ever thought that if I had an interaction with this person, in which I would have interactions with him, and they'd probably be wholly negative. And I remember one specific time in which I was in, where was I? I think it was in the nurse's office for something. And was talking about my sort of health thing going on, and Mr. Simon decides to mock me. And at this point, I'm like, oh, you little shithead. Looking back at it, I probably should have done something to him, but I guess it's glad that I didn't, but it's also like, would it have done anything? Probably not. It probably would have gotten me into more trouble with that school. I don't know. That was a... We had problems before that, but that was kind of one of the biggest straws or whatever. My actual teacher, because we were on the track system back then, which is basically one track would be on, or three tracks would be on, or two would be on and two would be off. Two would be off. Like you would essentially get a vacation or something. I don't know. And that was the last year they were doing the track system. So, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. Anywho, I'm like 90% sure my own teacher despised me, and I despised her as well. So I guess it worked out great. And then there was an issue on like kind of towards the last month and a half of me being at that fucking school, in which we were dressing up as historical figures. And parents were going around and like seeing these historical figure. It was like a historical figure. It was like a human museum. However, we were the people or whatever. I forgot who the fuck I was. Anywho, I didn't. Our job was to basically stand there and to like be retards for all these stupid fucking parents for so goddamn long. And my legs got tired, and I was like, I don't want to fucking stand this entire goddamn time. So I see a chair, and I take it, and I sit down. And then this child, whose name was Alexa, or Lexi, one of the fucking two, sits down, but the chair's not there because I had taken it. Now, I did not do this on purpose, but it was evident to me. It was like, oh shit, I knew at that point I'd kind of fucked up. And then she tells on me, and then the parent, who was also right there, also says, yep, he did it on purpose, and so then I get in trouble for that as well. So that was something else that happened. I guess if you really want to make sure that no child is, like, struggling to stand up, you bring a chair for everybody, you fucking retarded munches, but I guess not. Anywho, I guess we move on to middle school. Now we move on to middle school. And there were some problems, but none of them were, like, a lot of them dealing with just me and interacting with other students that weren't too bad, but still bad enough. But nothing that was... Usually, I would say those ones were entirely my fault. They were me getting in over my head on certain things that I probably should not have been dealing with. Like, it was me dealing with an 8th grader saying that I would do something and then not doing it, and then them bugging me about it, and then teachers getting involved, and that was just wild. My entire 6th grade year, I was in like 8th grade classes for like most of the time, because I think my testing scores for 5th grade were really good or something. I don't fucking know. Either way, I was in a lot of classes with 8th graders. which proved to be some problems, which proved to have some problems, but overall it was normal, stupid shit. Oh God, what happened? 7th grade hits, and I am in Mr. Button's class, and in his class there's another child named Thomas. I can't remember if we ever got along. I think we got along at some parts, and some parts not really. I know I would do this one thing where every time I would leave the class for, I don't know if it was for any reason or just for a specific reason, I'd flick his hat off, because he'd always have his hat on. It was like, flick, it was a monster hat. It was a black hat with the 3 monster M logo thingamajig. And I'd flick it off because I thought it was funny. He's like, and he'd be all upset. Like, and we all like fucking yell at each other and shit. But otherwise, it wasn't that big of a deal. Or maybe it was, I don't know. Anywho, his hat one day goes missing. And I'm blamed for his hat going missing. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? I've never actually taken your hat. I've just flicked it off your head. What the fuck are these people on about? Essentially, I get in trouble for that as well. I think I got, like, in schools, like, lunch suspension for that. And then one day, his hat turns up out of nowhere behind the computers in that classroom, in that same classroom. And I ask around, and people say this girl named Destiny did it. I don't know. I have no idea if that's true or not. But I remember one thing that happened. I think Destiny's mom died over the weekend, one of those days. And Thomas says, man, I felt bad for the car. Because the car was in the newspaper. Like, you could see the wreck. I was like, holy shit. And I don't think I ever, like, outwardly laughed. I was just like, yeah, sure, yep, I feel bad for the car too. Anyway, 8th grade was probably my best year there. God, high school was just a mess. That shit was stupid. First 2 years, I already did some of my high school stuff on this channel already. Yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest thing that I found was interesting in that school was, so in the state system in California, getting a D is passing, or having a D average is passing, I guess. I don't know if that's changed since then, because this was back in 2012. And so one of my classmates who sat right next to me was a senior that year. And I talked to him about something, like his grades, or like what he was going to do after high school, or like something about that. And he was like, well, I'm just going to get straight D's, I'm going to graduate. And he wanted to be a DJ. Now, I don't know if he ever became a DJ, but I do remember the conversation of saying, yep, I'm just going to get straight D's, I'm going to be a DJ after I graduate. And I was somewhat shocked, because I think at that point in my life, I was fully set on trying to go to college in some way, shape, or form. And hearing someone saying they just wanted to get straight D's and be a DJ was kind of like, what the fuck, bro? My mom would kill me. Yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of funny. I move again after my sophomore year, after taking the Cassie and passing it, because the year was a whole thing about the whole worry about me not passing the goddamn test, because if you didn't pass the test, you didn't graduate high school. You took it sophomore year, you have 2 more years to take it after that year. I think I had known somebody my sophomore year who didn't pass it his senior year or something, or his junior year or something, and so he had like 1 more year, one of the two, I don't know. There was a joke that he was a super senior. I don't know how true that was. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I think essentially it just means it got held back, but I don't think that's true. I think he probably passed it his last year, but I think he's in the military now, so that's interesting. Anywho, or was in the military, maybe he's out now. Yeah, so you take that test, which was basically a math portion and an English portion. I passed both. I actually passed math better than I passed the English portion, which was wild. Anywho, yeah, I move again back to Wisconsin. God. In which I moved into a school where I'm relentlessly bullied by a child named Griffin, who seemingly, he didn't run the school, but he was very well known. I would call this school a Riverdale school, in which, in the show Riverdale, all the parents of that show, all the parents of the main characters went to that same high school, Riverdale, and that's kind of what happened at this school that I moved to, in which a lot of the kids, well, maybe not a lot of the kids, but, like, there was a kid's dad and mom who worked at that same school, who actually went to that same school, and who was a junior and senior with me at that same time that I went there. So that's why I call it a Riverdale school. Kind of the first time ever in my life that I felt like that had ever happened to me. And I thought it was kind of neat in a way, but also, yeah, I just thought it was like kind of neat. It's like, oh, that's cool. That usually never happens, but apparently it happens a lot. Yeah, he was a douchebag. Let's see. There was, yeah, he was like the biggest negative part of my time there. Then there was also another kid. And essentially just me realizing that even if you tell somebody who theoretically should do something about it, they're not going to do anything about it. And especially in a town like that, because you're not going to, like, doing something about it would be like, in my head, would be not allowing a child to graduate. But A, that's never going to happen, regardless of what they do. B, it's not going to happen because of the sort of clout that child and that child's family has built up over the years, because that child's brother went to that same school. And probably the kid's mom, I don't fucking know. Two, it's like, it's just something that doesn't happen. Like, they don't, the only way you don't graduate in a town like that is if the town, if like people who manage that school actually hate you and your family. That's just generally how it works in those towns. So, yeah, he wasn't gonna get any sort of thing. It was kind of weird because like he would be sometimes like quasi nice to me, but usually he would just be a douchebag, and so it was kind of weird. But now it's yeah. I don't know. It's interesting, like going back over all these certain things that have happened in my school career, whether it's I did it or whether it's just because of whatever. Like, I don't know. I couldn't really think about like why anyone would want to do that to someone else, but essentially that's just how people are, and that's how I've learned to have this view of what the world is. And I think now that I'm in grad school, I have this negative view of the world, and everyone in grad school around me is like, why do you have such a negative view? Like, oh my god. But like here in this is where I start to become sexist to them, is where they're women and I'm a man in the world for both genders or sexes. I actually don't know how it works. It's very different, obviously. I mean, that's obvious to anybody. But it's also just different in the way of like how I and they might have grown up. Because I know a lot of them grew up in one town. They were born in one town and grew up in that same town. Like, from 0 to 18, that's what it was. That's not how it was for me, in any way, shape, or form. I moved around a bunch, as you can tell from the stories I just told. Maybe not as much as other people did in their lives, such as military brats or what have you. But it's still enough times to where there was no sort of... I don't call any of the states I lived home, or any of the cities that I lived home. I would like to live back out west because that just has nicer climate and more to do for me personally. And there are some good times there that I would like to not necessarily relive, but kind of live adjacently to, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so... So when I say, like, it's not... I don't think that there are... This goes into the conversation of, like... I guess in some cases, Black Lives Matter and all that other shit. Of, like, people talking about... When people talk about BLM, they talk about it in terms of black men, usually. At least that's how it started. In terms of, like, being killed by police, right? But the ultimate, I think, problem is that I don't think people invest in the genders and or sexes equally. I guess it would be sex, right? I don't know. I think it would be sex. I know that there was a giant push growing up to like put women through school or through college. which was fine. I never really cared. I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And I know that even past that, there have been conversations about toxic masculinity and all that other shit, and that's why we need more women in school or something. Women in STEM has been a big meme for the past 10 years amongst a lot of people. Uh, it's like, yeah, sure, go to STEM, who cares? Um, but I don't know that. I think that we're seeing a huge. What is it called? I think as what's his name? What would his name be? Van Joseph? What was his name? I don't know what the fuck his name was, but he did that whole white lash fucking speech when Donald Trump got elected. A sociological lash of whether it be disaffected young men, really dumb young men, men that aren't up to societal standards or whatever, or just like men that are burnt out from the traditional ways of trying to earn a living, such as, or the traditional way of trying to earn a living, I should say, such as going to school. And so I guess you could also point to just in general how life works of men going into the trades and things like that, and women doing desk jobs or whatever. And sociologically, that's kind of how life has worked. But I think now you're seeing a lot. I think that there was a certain point in time where like you had a huge, I was gonna say cut off, but decrease in men going to school, and some people have worried about that. I kind of worry about that from the perspective of where they're going to end up, because boys get in a lot more trouble than women do. Just in general, whether it be involving themselves in gangs or involving themselves in just anything that's like, what would you call it? Risky type behavior, boys and men are more likely to do than women are. And I think if you really wanted to talk about, especially black men, so I think if you really want to talk about these whole, like, I wouldn't say saving the black race, but having positive role models for black children or whatever, I think one thing you can do is actually start putting black children through school, and like not in a way that's like, oh, you just get a scholarship for this, but like actually investing in from the time that they're from 0 to 18, and so they don't feel burnt out from going to school. Because I read a book by Jesmyn Ward called The Men We Reaped, where she talked about how she'd met 5 boys, she had known 5 boys, all family members, who didn't make it to college, essentially. Once some of them died, one of them, and like some of them just didn't really go through school because they felt as though the teachers gave up on them and things like that. And so I think in some ways I kind of see, I don't know if I see myself in that way, but I see myself as someone who, against most horseshit stuff that's happened in my life, whether to me or by me, I've managed to continue going through school, and continued learning, I guess, even if it's at the detriment of earning money now, I guess, because I think also another thing is like men earning money now. That's a big thing. A lot of them do like warehouse jobs and things like that, and obviously school being expensive is another thing, but I mean, being realistic here, like community college is like rather cheap, and really, if you really invested the time and really applied yourself, you could be done with school in the same amount of time as a regular kid who goes to a 4-year college right out. It won't be the same exact way, because those kids get the privilege of partying and being in one solid environment versus you going to community college and having to be, depending on where you live and where your community college is, you have to either commute in or you live in the city that the community college is in, so you don't get that same sort of cohesion that a normal student would get. So you can feel left out in that way. And so then when you transfer to the big school you go to, you're just like, oh my god, I feel retarded because, oh my god, all these people know more than me. Because they probably do know more than you. Because that's why they went to a 4-year and you didn't. And that's totally fine. I think it's just dealing with the fact that that's how life is, and you are where you are at, and they are where they are at. But ultimately, it's where you want to be, and as long as you keep yourself on track, that's where you're gonna go. Hopefully. God, what the fuck was this story? Holy shit. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all I got. I don't really have anything else. Oh yeah, I guess the whole story was I think we need to invest a little bit more into boys and the men, than as we did to women in the, I'm gonna say like 2010s, but I'm not actually entirely sure. I think probably as much as we did push for women in STEM. I guess if that makes any more sense, or if that makes it make sense. Because I think that society, American society, I should say, and also women too, because women complain about not being able to find a good man, whatever the fuck that means. And if the women I've asked recently, maybe not recently, but just in my lifetime, of like, what is a good man, or like, if a man doesn't have a degree, would you date him? And some of them say no, and some of them say yes. But for the ones that say no, I feel like it's just kind of interesting, because then they're also in relationships, but it's like you're in a relationship because you, I don't know, like if you could leave, would you? That's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother can of worms I'm not getting into. But I will get into one day, because it's fun to talk about these things. So I think investing in people as a whole is a great thing, and not just investing in certain kinds of people. It's important. It's important to do so, because you will get a lot more out of it you will see a lot less problems arise if you put people through certain areas. And that doesn't have to be through school. It can be either through the military or through trade. But like, give them something to do between the ages of 18 and 21, and you will have probably a much better working society than you do now, where it's just like a lot of them are lost to doing whatever the fuck they want to do, and then you're just kind of like, apply to work at McDonald's, and they're not happy, and then they do other things like rob people, kill each other, kill themselves, or get into real shitty relationships, or follow the ugliest women on Instagram. I don't know. That's it. Oh, shit. Or you get people like that who just rev their fucking cars all day because they have nothing else to do in life. And I guess to point this out to the obvious, this does not mean that you divest in women going to school. I think because of how the two sexes play out, women are a lot better in school than men are. And so making it so men can be as good as women in school is probably a good thing. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I got. This was a very long video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to. Or don't. I don't really care. But, let me know how wrong I am or how right I am in the comment section. And if you're one of the people I talked about in this video, fuck you.